first of all, I want to welcome all of our listeners to Unsaid. I am your host and your mental health expert, Catie Whiting, and we are so excited to continue our mini-series on perimenopause/menopause. And really the title is, What the Hell is Perimenopause? Because I had no idea. And so today I'm very thankful and excited to welcome Megan to the show. Megan, I'm going to let you introduce yourself because you're just so cool. When we got on the call this morning, you're like, oh, I'm sorry, I just got off the river and I took my daughter to school. And so these are just cool things people want to know. So first of all, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Catie. It's a great honor to be here to be speaking with you, but also to talk to women about perimenopause and menopause, because it is such a topic that it needs exposure, needs people talking. And I think we are in the awakening era of talking about menopause and perimenopause. And It's so exciting for women like us. We were just talking about your experience, and I'll let you talk a little bit more about that. And I'll tell you about my experience and, what we can learn.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I'm already got goosebumps and it's early in the morning. So thank you.
Maybe that's your coffee. I don't know.
It for sure has something to do with that. The amount of coffee. Well, Megan, you start us off. Like, tell us about you. Tell us about your amazing business. Give our listeners a glimpse of you and we'll dive in.
Okay, sure. So first of all, about my business, I am the founder and the main coach for Thrive Through Midlife, which is a program for women anywhere mid-40s up through 60s and beyond. And what I do is I host a cohort, and I work with women all across the country. So it's not just local. I reach out to anyone who needs the help in really, dealing with, I can't cure symptoms, but we can certainly talk about how to mitigate them, how to work with your changing body, and how to help understand your body and what you can do to help make life and this transition a lot smoother and a lot happier and healthier. So that's what I do. Depending on the time of year, it's a 10 or a 12-week program. We mostly focus on nutrition and movement, but also talk about hormones, all the changes that happen. And we talk about it every single session. We do a Zoom a week. And then we work through an app for movement and for communication. But we talk about hormones, we talk about gut health, we talk about the macronutrients and the things you need to be focusing on with your protein, your carbohydrates. We talk about insulin resistance. We talk about mental health. We address all the things, and sleep and balance, and so many of the things that women in midlife really, really need. So that is what I do, my program. About me a little bit, I consider myself a lifelong educator. I started out as a teacher. Actually, in high school, I was already helping to teach a freshman class in German. I was a German language major.
Cool.
Yeah, right. But then went to live in Austria. I taught English in Austria for a few years, and then moved to Chattanooga, where I was a German teacher for 11 years. Jumped out of education for a couple of years and realized, oh my goodness, like this, I need to be back in the educating and coaching space. So, and through this whole time, I was a rowing coach, and so came back to coaching. Got certified in life coaching and did life coaching for a while. And I bring that to my sessions as well. A lot of the life coaching aspect of it. But I'm a personal trainer. I'm a certified nutrition coach. And a rowing coach also part-time. That's what I do, a triathlon coach as well. So I'm really kind of like, coaching is my jam. I love coaching. And really just love health, love nutrition. And I love working with women in this phase of life. And that's a pretty new thing for me, though, because of my own experience with the transition into menopause.
Yeah, that makes sense. So that's what I was going to ask. You're guiding me right into it. Like, why this population? What led you and all the coaching experiences you have to midlife of women?
Yeah. And like I mentioned before, you and I were talking about your experiences, and it was truly my own experience in making the transition through perimenopause into postmenopause, or menopause, I should say, because I had, I think, I don't know, maybe like 6, 7, 8 years ago. I think 8 years ago, I had a hysterectomy. And my ovaries were left intact. So I was still, still had all of my hormones and everything was going on except for no periods. So when it came time for me to hit perimenopause, I didn't have the tracking of my periods to know that things were going to be changing. And number two, I didn't even know what perimenopause was, right? Like,
Yes.
I had heard about perimenopause, and of course I knew about menopause, but I thought that menopause was something for 60-year-old women, right? And so all of these things started happening to me, and there were symptoms number one, I didn't really know what perimenopause was. Number two, I only thought that symptoms of menopause were hot flashes, right? I wasn't getting hot flashes. I was having heart palpitations when I was training. I couldn't keep my heart rate under control. I was, waking up drenched in sweat, and I didn't know what this was all about. And so then I literally stopped training. And oh, by the way, I started getting plantar fasciitis, and couldn't get rid of it. And so things were changing, but I didn't know what it was. And I was really scared. And I went to my GP, and who happens to be my rowing partner. And I said, there's something going on. I can't control my heart rate. So we did heart tests, we did all of that. Only to find out, after I started getting hot flashes, to add to everything else. Oh, and crazy anxiety and rage. Like, I mean, it was menopause, like, moved in through a raging house party for about 4 months. And then we're like, boom, we're done. Like, we're done with you. And I guess I'm lucky that it was like such a big, grand finale fireworks, because
Yeah.
that's what I felt was going on.
Sure.
And then things kind of evened out. But that's when I got help from my GP, who said, okay, we're going to put you on hormones. She did my blood test and said, you're done. She's like, you've gone through menopause. You are there. And so she put me on a blend of testosterone and estrogen. And within about 2 to 3 weeks, I was sleeping through the night. It was beautiful. I felt like a new woman.
I bet.
Yes, yes. And I know, to add to the other symptom, and this is something I think we should definitely talk about, is my sex drive was gone. And I was wondering what was going on with myself. I was like, why am I not interested anymore?
Yeah.
So, and I had no idea that was also part of it. So, that's what led me to decide that this is where I want to take my coaching focus, is to help women understand everything, but also help them help themselves with nutrition and movement, and also hormone education and education about what they can do themselves if they choose not to go the hormone route, to help themselves through this time.
Wow, that's beautiful. And I think it's so good for people to hear. I mean, there's so many versions, if I may. I mean, everybody's story is different, but
Yeah.
about the journey, right? And about, like, sometimes it's not, like you said, just hot flashes. Like, there's a array of symptoms that you don't know about. Like,
Mhm.
it's just wild. So I appreciate you sharing. So from your perspective, then your experience and now your training and knowledge and working with this population, and, perimenopause, which I didn't know what the heck it was either. It was explained to me as the transition time to menopause. So in your perspective, in your work, what the hell is perimenopause to you?
Yeah, it is exactly that. It's the transition. So medically speaking, it is basically the transition from your childbearing years into post-childbearing years. And it's basically your body. You are born with a certain number of eggs in your body. And basically, when you start to run out of those eggs, that's when you start to go through these crazy fluctuations in your hormones. So just like a young girl starts getting her hormones and they start regulating her menstrual cycle, this is just the other end of that. This is just our menstrual cycle is starting to deregulate as we start to lose eggs. And so our periods get irregular as those, eggs kind of pop back out every once in a while. But the hormones are fluctuating, and it's just the opposite of puberty, really. And that's what it is. It's that transition into the point where you will no longer have a period and you will no longer be of childbearing status.
Yeah. Yeah. No one has explained it that way. So thank you. That was fabulous. Yeah, this is what happens in these interviews. I'm like, wow, I'm learning. So before we get into more symptomology and the guide through, because you've been using myself as the guinea pig, like I would like to know, especially with the women you've worked with and your own experience, like what do you believe is the most misunderstood part of perimenopause specifically, but you can also go into menopause. Like what have you come across?
Most misunderstood is, I think, the range of symptoms and when it happens and how long it happens for. But really, I would say symptomology is the most misunderstood. And the reason it is because, like we've talked about, there's very little discussion about perimenopause
Yeah,
and what it is.
absolutely.
And it's really, truly shocking to learn that doctors in general get next to no education about menopause. And even OBGYNs, sometimes they'll get a chapter in a book through their whole, like, everything. And there's this thing that I've heard, and it's so true that OBGYNs basically focus on bikini medicine, right? It's like everything that the bikini covers is what,
Never
right?
heard that. Oh my
Me neither.
gosh.
And when I heard about it, I was like, whoa, because we talk about breast cancer, all of that. And we talk about everything to do with your vagina, with vaginal health, with the uterus, with ovarian, cancer, things like that. Cysts, polycystic ovary syndrome. So many different things is what is focused on, but not so much about our hormones. And after reproductive years, then, oh, well, women are so complicated that, that's what
Yeah.
people are told.
Yeah.
And that's what scientists have said. And so little research has been done on menopausal women and perimenopause and menopause that it's actually quite staggering to think about. But luckily, the focus is starting to shift, and there are like there's a core group of women who are becoming and doctors who are becoming so vocal about menopause that I think we're at the beginning of a movement.
Yeah, which is so cool and so needed. We think some people believe, whomever, we've advanced so much in women and understanding women and things, but really we've like barely hit the surface.
Okay.
Barely. Yes, very cool. Very cool. I have not heard of bikini medicine. I love that. I'm going to use that all the time. But you absolutely hone in, and it is a theme that like they're just not trained. The doctors that specialize, right, in women are not trained historically, are not trained
Mm.
about even the head to toe, right? That the bikini medicine just sums it up right there. Like, what about the rest of my body?
There you go.
It's all connected. And so that's absolutely wild. That was great way to explain that to us. So I appreciate it. If you, through your scope, right? So if we go in, and I'm again using myself as a guinea pig, and so you and I haven't really gone over a lot of my symptoms and things necessarily,
Mm.
but to short synopsis, right? So I'm a 38-year-old female. I had a biological birth 6 years ago, or vaginal birth, obviously a biological, 6 years ago. And then about the last 6 to 8 months, after I started learning a little bit more, I realized things like I began to notice like I was waking up in the night and I wasn't soaking wet. I just was like almost like if you had a tiny little fever and you just have like little beads of sweat. And it was
Mhm.
becoming quite common. And I thought like I'm dehydrated, that type of thing. Of course. Well, then I'm chugging water and waking up more because I have to
Mhm.
pee. And then I noticed, and my partner noticed, quite a change in mood right before my period, like a significant change in comparison to, my past. And I've had a period for a long time where, like, I think, for my family, they're like, are you okay? Like, it's a different. And then my period was irregular. But again, in my mind, I'm a perinatal mental health specialist. So in my mind, not thinking, I guess. I was like, well, this is just, I had a baby, my body resettled. This is my new period. My new period is every maybe 20 to 40 days, that type of thing. And then hair loss. I thought, and if you can tell, this is not my natural color. So all of a sudden, hair's like coming out, and I'm like, man, I fried my hair. Oh no, like the blonde fried. Well, I realized it's not like fried ends, it's like full hair, right? And so
Mhm.
these things are coming to light, and I go and visit Lauren, who's one of our other episodes as we discussed, and she wanted to start by running labs. And I just went in for a baseline to say, like, hey, if I keep track every year, maybe I'll know if things start to switch. And the labs, yeah, I give her the story, and the labs come back, and she's like, well, maybe it's already starting to switch. And I was like, I'm 38. Like, in my mind, this stuff happened to my mom when she was 60, even though she's
Right?
60 now and it happened a long time ago. Like I didn't know. And so that being said, I want people, our listeners, women, and myself, right, selfishly, to have a perspective of everyone, because what I'm finding out is it's not just my labs, it's not just my symptoms, it's not just my age, it's like everything together. It's the story.
Yes.
So if I came to you, right, and maybe that's through the cohort, like what stands out to you of that, right?
Oh, yeah. To me, what stands out is you're not sleeping at night, that you are, kind of waking up with the beads of sweat, that your mood is changing, and that your periods are irregular. To me, that's like, yeah, like you're starting your transition. Now at 38, that's kind of young, to be starting it, to start to have symptoms. But I mean, there is such a thing as early perimenopause. There is early menopause. And so, the thing is that perimenopause can last, from the beginning, can last an average of, 10 years for white women, and actually longer for women of color. Um,
Interesting.
yeah, it's really interesting. So, you could be at the beginning of symptoms. You could go through menopause early.
Yeah.
So, those are things that would definitely stand out to me.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
what you said about, oh, your mom, oh, you think it's like I said, it happens to 60-year-old women.
Right.
Um, and so that's why you don't even start to think about it. But I think if we can get women in their 30s to start to pay attention, because it's like, if you don't know it's going to be happening to you and you don't know what the symptoms are, you're not going to be paying attention. And just like both you and I were like, oh, that's something that happens later. I don't have to think about it. I don't have to worry about it. And because people weren't talking about it, they didn't realize, or we didn't realize, how much of an effect it can actually have on your day-to-day life,
Absolutely.
right? So
Absolutely.
tell me and the listeners, how has this affected your daily life?
Thank you for asking. That is a fabulous question. Keeping in mind caveat that I teach, right, in mental health to be very aware and apply things to daily life, right? And here I am. It was affecting my marriage, for the fact
Mhm.
that, I mean, my partner's fantastic, but that mood swing, right? Like all of a sudden there's this like raging, like people are walking and my children are walking on eggshells. And
Mhm.
I did notice it because I knew something, like I was being an asshole, excuse my language. Like I was being a jerk, but I was like, this is just it. And so, but I didn't realize like they then began to almost in a pattern, right? Find, oh, it's that like Katie's in that space, right? Not necessarily saying it was like her period, just saying it was in that time. Also, I have historically been a very anxious mom, right? I had postpartum anxiety very intensely, hence my why I specialize in it now. So I just put it off to, oh, my anxiety's roaring again. My mom's anxiety's roaring again, right? Like that part. And so I'm here trying to use all of my tools, my mental health tools that I know and learn, and like it's not working. So then I'm starting to look at myself like am I going crazy? Like is this that next level of anxiety where like I have to go, seek this help and this help and this help type of thing, right? And then thirdly, my feeling of myself, right? All of a sudden I feel so bedraggled. I feel like bags under my eyes are just standing out, right? Like the surface level stuff that I guess I've never really historically thought I had to think much about. Like I just felt old, gross, right? And so
Yeah.
I'm sure lack of sleep, didn't help that. And
Mhm.
so it totally, now that I look back, has affected me. But on the flip, to answer a little further, then when I realized I might be in perimenopause, I'll be honest, it sent me, without the knowledge I'm gaining from interviewing experts like yourself, it sent me into a further like, holy moly, like I'm old. Like what happened? I used to be 20 and then I was this fun young mom and like now I'm this old lady, right? And so I'll be honest, I still struggle with that hence why
Mhm.
I'm learning. But in a long way to answer your question, those are the multiple ways it affected me and still do.
Yeah, exactly. And those are conversations that are what is needing to happen, because you hear about the symptoms, but when it comes down to how it affects your day-to-day life, that's what women need help with. Because, when you said, I thought I was going crazy, your family was walking on eggshells, your switch did affect family dynamics. That is what women then start to blame themselves
Yeah.
for, because
Yes.
they don't understand what is happening to their bodies. And when you're not sleeping, it affects your mood. But when you're not sleeping, it also affects internal things that are going on, like your cortisol levels and how your body handles food, and how your insulin starts to not be as effective in your body. So all of these things start to happen because of lack of sleep, because of hormone shifts. And so while you're wondering what is going on with me mentally, if you start to gain weight,
Yes.
then you go, oh my gosh, wait a minute. I'm doing everything I've done. I haven't changed my eating. And why am I now like 5 pounds heavier? So, there are all these things that are affecting your day-to-day life, but then these other things start happening. And we as women, who are the first people we get really tough on?
Yeah.
Ourselves.
Absolutely.
Um, yeah. And when you don't understand, you think, I am going crazy. What is wrong with me? What am I doing? What am I not doing? And you internalize it because you think that you're not normal. And that's why we need this education and need to understand what's happening with our bodies.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. No, and I appreciate your response to that because you're absolutely right. And then you start to, like again, even talking to you, right? As I sit here listening to your response, I'm like, oh wait, I have more. No, that energy crash we talked about before we started recording at 3 o'clock, like that absolutely hinders my day to day. Like that's when I go get my kiddos from school and I'm like, I feel as if I'm on a 7 day hangover, right? And
Mhm.
and just the different things. So absolutely we need to know more and become aware on that note, right? Like I love that idea of like, okay, first let's become aware of our bodies and selves and
Yes.
understand like what is happening. But then in your perspective and your scope of practice, right? What do I do next? Like what, I don't want to say what, and if recommended is a good word, I'll use that. But like if I came to you and I was like, Megan, look at, I'm like sweating right now. What's happening? What do you want me to do next? How would you guide me?
Okay, great question. Well, there are a number of different ways it's really a holistic taking care of yourself that needs to start happening. And for some women, that's really hard to do at this point in our lives, is take care of ourselves, because we're taking care of kids if we have them. If we have pets, we're usually the main caregiver there. For many of us, we have aging parents. who we are also responsible for taking care of. For many of us, if we do have careers, we're at the very height of them. Um, and so there are so many different things tugging at us. And so, number one, we have to learn how to take care of ourselves, focus on ourselves. It is not selfish, because if you can't show up in your best version, like for everybody else, then you're really doing everybody a disservice, not just yourself. So, it's like put your oxygen mask on first, and then you can start to really look and see, okay, how can I work on this? And so the ways we work on this is, number one, we start to focus on nutrition. One of my questions is, well, before we even talk about nutrition, is, hey, have you talked to your doctor about, hormone replacement therapy, or what is now known as menopausal hormone therapy? Have you talked about that? Because, most women are candidates, not everybody is. So you can't just assume that you can, that this is a luxury that you can have. But it's not even a luxury. It's something that can help us. And it's literally augmenting our body's hormones that have just started to drift away. So that's one of the first discussions we have. Then we talk about the fact that we'll be talking about nutrition, about movement for those energy levels, and nutrition for your energy levels. But we talk about things that, we might need to supplement with. I always encourage the women that I work with to go get their blood tested, to check out their levels of vitamin D, for energy, but also for calcium, their B vitamin levels. Also check cholesterol, because very often cholesterol rises with the transition into menopause. So, let's see where you stand, and let's see what needs some attention. So we talk about that. Another thing, self-care, sleep, and we talk about sleep hygiene. So your sleep habits.
Yes.
Because if you're not sleeping well, that's when you're going to, like you say, get that 3 p.m. hangover, but that's also nutrition related,
Sure.
right? So we talk about nutrition, how to keep steady blood glucose levels to avoid the spikes of glucose and then the crashes that follow. And that's usually why a lot of people get that 3 p.m. slump, because a couple hours after lunch, if you've had a very carbohydrate heavy lunch, then you're just going to crash, and your energy levels are going to tank, and you might get grumpy and moody and all of those things. But add on top of that, not getting enough sleep.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we can talk about natural methods that help those vasomotor symptoms, the hot flashes, the night sweats at night. So to help to get you sleeping through the night a little better. We talk about your nutrition during the day. We talk about a focus on protein and fiber and gut health, because those things actually, like gut health, what happens in your gut and the kind of foods that you eat. And then as your gut digests them, it leads to maybe imbalances in your microbiome, which are all the little, bugs in your gut that live in there, your bacteria. And so we can feed good bacteria, and we can actually feed bad bacteria with more processed foods. And so we learn about that gut health and how important it is, because in your gut messages up to your brain, and your brain messages down to your gut. It's pretty crazy. And so if your microbiome in your gut isn't healthy and you're feeding the wrong kinds of gut bugs, it actually affects your mood. Serotonin is actually regulated and produced and signaled from your gut, from your digestion. It's pretty crazy. And so a lot of your mood hormones originate in your gut. And so we talk about that, because that can also help with your mood. And we talk about the mental health aspect of this time period in your life as well. What's your balance? Like, how much time are you actually giving to yourself versus giving to everybody else?
Yeah.
And we have to take care of our family, kind of our roles as moms and partners, and daughters and sisters, but we also have to make sure that we're not giving everything that we have so that we can start to focus on ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. And it's a lot, right? I think too,
Yeah.
like as you go through the things, like, I'm like, wow, I got a lot to do now, right? I've got a lot of things to look at. So where should I start? Where would you recommend, right? I start focusing on to hit the ground running, but yeah, I've got a lot of roles to play. So if I do all those things right now, right, I'm going to be like, just be old in my mind. What do you think? Where do I begin?
No, you're right. It can be overwhelming, right? To start to take this time when you're so busy and you have so much going on to start really like focusing in on your nutrition and your movement. I would start by making sure that you are making movement a regular part of your day-to-day routine or weekly routine, because movement doesn't have to be like targeted exercise doesn't have to be daily, but quality exercise, let's go for quality over quantity, first of all. So we would talk about getting you exercising regularly, at least 3 times a week. And, we always start out at a really manageable level, because if you haven't been exercising or making time for that every day is totally overwhelming. Yeah, time-wise, but also mentally. So we need to get moving. And not just targeted exercise, but if you work a desk job, if you're sitting a lot, get up, move like every hour and a half, because before you know it, you can be sitting at your desk for 3 hours. And so that keeps our energy levels up. It keeps our glucose, it helps to stabilize our blood glucose levels. So, to avoid those peaks and crashes. So, making movement a regular part of your week, whether it's little bits every day or targeted exercise, both is great. But the nutrition part and the sleep part and the overall, mental part is so big. Like I keep coming back to that. But focusing on your nutrition, movement, nutrition are the best things that you can do. There are things you can be eating. We talked about protein. So really making sure you have a good amount of protein in every meal. And I really recommend to track what you eat, add another thing to the list, but, get an app, track what you eat and see how much protein you really are eating. Because a lot of women think, oh, yeah, I eat a yogurt for breakfast. That's protein. I eat an egg. Ooh, that's protein. For lunch, I have, a tuna sandwich. Ooh, protein. Oh, I'm doing great, But what that might be is that might look like 10 to 12 grams a meal.
Right.
And what we should actually be focusing on, number one, to help support our muscles, because as we age, and especially as we start to lose our estrogen, our muscles start to weaken. That's with the estrogen loss. But as we age, we actually start to lose muscle at faster and faster rates. So, you being 38, you still, are really not at that sarcopenia. That's the fancy word for losing muscle. You're really not at the age to start losing muscle yet. But when you can go into, and this is where I say to 30 and 40-year-olds, like if you can go into perimenopause and menopause really strong, you're already setting yourself up for success in being able to hold on to your muscle better. So, eating protein to support your muscle, to support maintenance of your muscle is really important. But then focusing on that gut health and going into this transition with a very, very healthy digestive system, which means it's going to be supporting your body's natural hormone regulation and hormone secretion and hormone creation, that all kind of starts in your gut. So those are the main things that I would say for you to do right now. Like start to learn more about your nutrition, about your protein. We do recommend to start 100 grams a day for women. And to me, that's kind of like the minimum as to where you should be.
Really? Of protein?
Yeah. 100 grams.
Because that's a lot of protein.
Yeah.
Especially if you don't love, I don't love meat. I was raised vegetarian and I eat meat now, but like, that's a lot. Not that it has to just be meat, but
Right.
okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And, 100 grams to start. But if you're in the, if you're wanting to make sure you maintain muscle, and if you are actively working out, and if you're lifting, which is one of the recommendations, like the main recommendation for menopausal women is lift. Um, it's more important. Everybody thinks cardio, cardio,
I know.
cardio, right? Exactly. But it's not just cardio. And it's more for women who are transitioning and menopausal. Lifting heavy weights is where it's at. And so that we can strengthen our muscles and maintain muscles. There are other ways of lifting as well. And cardio is important for the heart health. But that goes to lower intensity, longer bouts. And then on the flip side, we're doing shorter, heavier bouts of lifting. My recommendation is, if you haven't been regularly lifting in the gym, just start with body weight. Start learning your movement. Hire a personal trainer. Work with someone who's very knowledgeable, and don't ever try lifting heavy on your own. Like,
Yeah.
definitely do it guided. Um, but those would be my recommendations for you. Start to learn about your nutrition, about the right kind of carbohydrates to eat and getting enough protein, and then start to move regularly.
Amazing. And I'm going to get to work. I'm already thinking about the things I need to do like right now. And I want to back up and say, like, I think the part of me that just said, like, I don't have time to start all this stuff. Like, where would you want me to start? You know, that's our listeners' challenges, right? I
Yes.
know my clients, my friends, myself say, like, oh, that's too much. Like, I don't have time for this. But I think that's a challenge. Would you agree?
Oh, 100%, 100%. And that's where, you know, taking a step back and really looking at your responsibilities and going through, okay, what is necessary for me to be doing right now in my roles? And where have I been doing stuff that I really don't need to be doing? Where can I start to offload some of these things that either I have taken on and created a responsibility for that I don't have to be responsible for? Where can I get help? Where can I create this time to make this time for myself? Because it is about creating that time for yourself. And so sometimes you either have to ask for help, which women are notoriously bad at doing,
Yes.
right? Um, and reevaluate your roles. Like, where am I taking on too much that I don't have to be doing? Which, once again, is not selfish, because you need to be the best version of yourself to be able to love the people you love for longer and do it in better quality for
Yeah,
longer.
quality. That's it, right? Like, not just adding time to our life, but adding good time. Yes,
Yeah.
that should be the bumper sticker, but we'll come back to that and print that separately. Absolutely. And I think, it brings me to just to reiterate, like, in mental health, we always say, like, well, especially even as practitioners, we're like, what are you doing for your self-care? Like you have to be doing, and self-care became so, I didn't realize this till I've gotten older. So like, I don't know if pigeonholes the word for women. Like if I ask them, like, what do you do for self-care? They're like, well, I got a massage a month ago and I'm going to get my nails done and my hair done. And none of that, I'm not dissing any of that. I
Right.
think all of that's great. But I believe true self care is like a perspective, right? Like
Yeah.
self care, like time, like you said. Like I need to give myself time so that I can sit and just be stinking aware of my body,
Oh my gosh.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Huge, huge.
Yeah.
So that's a huge pointer to take away
Yeah.
from today.
And self-care doesn't have to be something big that
Yeah,
requires an appointment
yeah,
because that's yet another little stressor. Like, oh my God, I have to I'm going to run late for my massage. And then I have to just, self-care can be when you are overwhelmed, just saying, guys, I'm going for a walk. Like, just,
yeah.
like, just go take care of yourself. Be alone. Alone time is so important and we get so little of it. Or like for me, I have a hard time finding 2 hours in between all the little different things I'm doing that I can truly relax and truly do something for myself. And so it's finding the time and carving it out, because women have a hard time doing that. Take a bath. It doesn't have to be anything big. Take a bath, light some candles, or just go for a drive, go shopping. Even if you're not going to buy anything, just go be out and be by yourself and nourish your soul. I buy myself flowers every week.
Do you
And
really?
I do.
Ah, I love that.
I do. And I
Yeah.
put them like right beside my computer. So it's like I can look at them and they're fresh, and I love flowers, and it gives me just a little bit of like, you know,
Yeah.
because I totally gave up on my partner, like chewing in on the fact that I love flowers. Like that is not his language,
Sure.
right? That doesn't even occur to him. And so I stopped getting like mad about it. And I was like, why am I having this expectation thing? That's another one, expectations. That's where I stopped having this expectation and said, if I want flowers, I'm going to buy them myself, you know? And it's just releasing expectations and just saying, you know what, whatever. I love them. I'm going to do it. And that's something that I do for myself and I look forward to. So that is self-care.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's like yeah. Oh, I love the self-care thing. And just to bring more tips and tricks of how to do it, right? In these busy lives. And back, one more thing you said is to put your own oxygen mask on first, right? We use that analogy all the time. Like when you get on the airplane, they say if the oxygen mask release, like put your own on before assisting. Otherwise you're going to be like on the ground passed out. You're not going to be able to help anybody. And I think to round it back, I think that's what, if I reflect on what was really starting to happen to me day to day, is I was trying to be the helper that I am, but I wasn't. Like I was running out of my own oxygen.
Yes.
And I was trying to put people's masks on, but they aren't staying. And so then it's crumbling everyone, right? Not that I need to hold them all, but I had placed myself in that role. And so things around me they were running out of oxygen because I didn't have any.
Yes.
And that's big. That's huge.
It is huge. It is huge. And that's why that self-care part is so, so, so important, because it becomes more important for us because as like you said, as you're sleeping less, as your hormones are changing, because your hormones actually, affect your brain, not just estrogen, but testosterone and progesterone. They all have receptors in the brain. And when these start running low, then our brain starts functioning differently and doesn't function as well. And one other symptom, and I don't know if you've experienced brain fog, but brain fog doesn't have an actual medical term. The medical term for brain fog is actually, I think, cognitive fatigue.
Okay.
Which, if you think about it, it's like I'm not like fatigued.
Like it.
Yes, you are. It sounds horrible. But brain fog is when like your brain just doesn't work the same way. You can't think clearly. You can't find words. Things are always on the tip of your tongue, but you can't find the words you want to speak with. And you can't express yourself well. And, so when that starts to happen, it's so important mentally, give yourself a break. Women don't know that brain fog is a part of it. And they think, am I going crazy? Like you said, am I getting early onset dementia? Oh my gosh, what's happening? And so really taking time to slow down and recognize it, but then give yourself that mental breathing space, because it only gets worse if you don't.
Yeah. And thank you for bringing that up, because I do have it, but it's been a little bit different where if like, I'm going to give an example, like here's lip gloss and a pencil and they're sitting on the table and I'd be like, hey, in my mind, I want you to pass me the lip gloss. I'm like, hey, babe, can you pass me the pencil? But I mean the lip gloss, like my goal. And it kept happening to me. And I thought exactly that. I was like, oh my gosh, like dementia runs in the family. Like here it is. Like, is it? And you're right. It was like a part of, yes, brain fog. Brain fog. Yeah.
And how
absolutely.
many times have I had like my phone in my hand? I feel like, where's my phone?
Yes.
And I'm looking for it everywhere.
Yeah.
And it's in my hand.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what I put off to, well, I'm just so busy. Like I have so many things going on that, and one thing of that I did find out from another person I interviewed, and some of the statistics is like women that do go into menopause, one, there's like a 55% increase of SSRIs prescribed because of their
Yes.
depression. And two, they're not staying in the workforce that they're in because their jobs that they had, all of a sudden, when all of these things happen, like they think or they can't keep up with it. And it's actually like crazy numbers.
They are crazy numbers. And that's where being aware of brain fog is, it's not you. It's not that you can't keep up anymore. It's not that you're too busy. Well, actually, you probably are because you've been running the rat
Right.
race and
It's
you've been
true.
taking care of everybody and working this job. So, but it's something that can be helped. And this is where I am a total supporter of hormone replacement therapy. Even if you are still in perimenopause, you can still start with lower doses of the hormones that you need to help you sleep through the night, to help you be more productive and aware and awake during the day, and to help get rid of this brain fog so that you can feel like yourself again and you can feel sharp and you can feel smart again. Because when this brain fog happens, you don't feel smart anymore. And when you start to have these fits of rage and anxiety, work can be really challenging. You can get anxious about what's happening, about the fact that you're not keeping up at work. I mean, all of these things happen, um, and it's really worth exploring and talking to your doctor about.
Absolutely. No, and I think that's great for our listeners because even myself, I have concerns like hormone replacement therapy. I don't know if I want these chemicals and things on and so forth. But you said it early on in this interview, like quality, like the quality of life, right? When my 6-year-old daughter is grown, I don't, not that she would sit and reflect on all the bad things, but I don't want her to sit and reflect that I couldn't get myself together when really it was just me being so unaware and detached from my physiological changes in my
Mm-hmm.
body that I have power over. I just didn't know I did.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And
Okay.
it's definitely something that, women shouldn't be afraid of, because what we're doing is we're just helping our body raise those levels of natural hormones that we've had and that we've been relying on, that we didn't realize it. So, there's no reason to suffer if your quality of life is dropping and your quality of life is suffering.
Yeah.
There is no reason to do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I love it. Thank you so much for saying all that. If you would just give me one more minute, I have some questions from listeners
Yeah.
that I have gotten and I've asked throughout the speakers. And we didn't really touch today much on libido. You mentioned your own journey, right,
Hmm.
within menopause, but a lot of people are like, even in perimenopause, like, what happened? Like, my sex drive is gone. I have no libido. Like, if anything, when my husband touches me, I'd rather him not. So, that being said, yeah, give me just some insight and advice to that person. What happened to it? What do I do?
Yeah, talk to your provider.
Yeah. Yeah.
Get some help, because that is something that, as much as you might think you want to have sex, as much as you may even still feel like attractive, but you've got nothing in your body or lower levels that are saying, "Yeah, let's get it
Yeah.
on,"
Yeah.
But you also start to feel less attractive.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Yes.
just kind of this cycle. So that is something that, go talk to your GP or your OBGYN about hormones, because it's about testosterone, it's about estrogen, less so progesterone for that, but estrogen, testosterone are really, really big.
Yeah. No, I think that's great. And I did not know that I mean, I knew I had testosterone. I did not
Mhm.
know that needed to be looked at, of course. You see the low T clinics for men, all around town. And I'm like, it's a guy thing. It's a guy thing. Not
Oh,
educating myself. And, here I am needing probably some assistance with that and didn't think I could get it or maybe even deserved it. I don't know. So,
ooh, deserve. Oh, let's not even talk about that.
yes.
Um, but here's the thing. Testosterone for women is not FDA approved.
Yeah.
So there is no like, hey, go get your prescription for testosterone. It has to be compounded for us, or, you get a prescription, but it's dosed for men. And so it's something that women need to keep fighting for, because yes, we do have testosterone in our bodies and we need it.
Yeah. Yeah. That could be a whole soapbox episode itself.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Yeah,
Every
let's not start.
I drive by and I'm like, oh, I could throw an egg at you. No, I shouldn't say that on here, but I won't throw an egg at a building. But sometimes I think I want to. So okay. So my last thing for you is in regards from our listeners and our questions is there are some listeners, right? Because this podcast started for moms in the perinatal, experience, pregnancy and postpartum. And some of our listeners are really interested in like, okay, I'm not too perimenopause. I don't have those symptoms, but like, I want to be ready because I wasn't ready for pregnancy and birth like I thought I was. And I want to be ready for this next. You might have hit on it already, but re-sum that up of how those people can be ready as possible.
And it's funny, I will draw that parallel to childbirth, right? For those of us who have had children, you lay out your birth plan. You've got everything planned, how it's going to be so perfect. And yeah, it's going to hurt. And, and then the moment comes and it's like, I don't care if I want a natural childbirth. Give me the drugs. Give me the, and then, it doesn't go as planned. And next thing you know, you're in for a C-section. That's basically menopause.
Yeah.
I mean, you can plan for it, but every symptom is going to be different. And every experience is different with it. So my advice is talk to other women who have gone through it, but also educate yourself, start to learn about what the symptoms are. And then, like you said, be aware of your own body, start to track your cycle, start to see, because if you still have a uterus and you still get periods, track your cycle. Now, if you've got something, if you're on birth control, or if you're, wearing an IUD or a ring that keeps you from getting your period, that's more difficult to do. But at least be aware of symptoms and be very aware of your body to start to know, so that when you do start to feel different, get anxiety, the rage, start to feel more depressed or whatever might happen, lose hair, get tired, because, fatigue is a big part of it, then just start to put two and two together. So and it can start to happen for you, 38. So late 30s up to mid 40s is when that perimenopause might start to have its effects on your bodies. And some women have very few symptoms. Some women have all the symptoms. So learn them.
Yeah, learn them. Advice. Absolutely. Now, I don't think we should ever stop, or not start, I should say, becoming aware of our body and that we deserve the right to know ourselves head to toe.
Yeah, absolutely. And, and if you go to see a GP, or even if somebody in your family is like, what are you talking about? It's all in your head, or there's nothing wrong with you. It's just do not accept that. Know your body. And just like you said, it is your body. It is your right to treat it, to honor it, to listen to what it's telling you. And, don't let other people try to strong arm you into thinking that it's a you problem. It's, you're fine. What are you talking about? You're just having a bad day. No, really, just, if you think it's something that is more, it's chronic, it's happening, go seek help.
Yeah, I love it. Megan, I want to hang out with you. This was amazing. It was wonderful. Take you for a cup of coffee. Is there anything before we close out, because we covered a lot and I've learned so much, and I'm going to get to work because I got things to do, right? I'm ready. But all that said, is there anything else you think that our listeners need to know that we've missed, or you think, for perimenopause and just embracing ourselves? Anything else you want to add?
Thinking about it? Of course, I'll think of like 10 things later.
Of course.
Now, no, it's just that, reach out for help, find a buddy, talk to other women. And if you need accountability in starting to make changes, find accountability, find a partner, find a coach, and take yourself seriously with love. All the love that you would give your best friends, your family, give that to yourself.
All the emotions, all the feels. Megan, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for joining us. I want to make sure our listeners know about that you're the founder and owner of your organization and how cool it is. And I remember you saying, I'm just thinking about it now, like you can see anyone in the United States, right? I mean, you're not subject to Chattanooga, Tennessee. So this is amazing. We're going to blast you out there and all your social media handles and all of that good stuff. And I would say, like, if our listeners have questions or want to learn more from you, that they need to reach out. Is that fair? Is that the best way to go through your website? And
that is great. You can go through my website, which is thrivethroughmidlife.co. You can find me on Instagram, which is Thrive Through Midlife. So that's how you can find me. You can always reach out. I work individually with people as well, but I do bigger cohorts, which I love, because you have a group of women in the same place dealing with the same thing. And everybody kind of vibes off each other. We share tips, we share experiences. So, that's a real great way of creating a community where you can feel really supported too. So, find me, Thrive Through Midlife. And thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to come in and talk with you, Catie.
Absolutely. It's been so great. This mini series is going to be fantastic for all the listeners. So thank you for coming.
I love you for doing that.
I'm selfishly learning so much. Like it's beautiful. It's beautiful. So I hope as it's impacting me that it impacts others. Before we're done, and I'll say goodbye to our listeners and thanks for joining us on Unsaid, I want you to say you have a tagline I saw on your website.
Mm-hmm.
Can you say it? I have it written down somewhere, but can you?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, thrive through midlife because we're tired of just surviving.
And that's a wrap.